Hey y'all, this is a Fat Man. Hit that subscribe button if you don't mind. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. I'd appreciate it. I'm gone. Hey y'all, Fat Man Outdoors. Today I want to talk a little bit about knives. I made a short the other day asking the question of how many of you still pack pocket knives, and surprisingly, I actually had several people comment saying they pack one, and a couple guys even said their wives pack one. They talked about the different types of knives that they carry. I wanted to just briefly show some examples of knives that people use now and way back, and even how people have refurbished or reused, I guess, repurposed certain items and made some pretty cool knives out of them. They used to do a lot of that stuff in the trenches in World War II. If you can get a hold of them, the knuckle knives, they made a lot. People call them trench art. They made a lot of knives there out of next to nothing that were brutal combat weapons. If you can get a hold of those, some of those are pretty cool, but they're getting harder and harder to find because nobody makes them, so they're just not out there to go to a store and get one. But like just normal pocket knives, this is of course my favorite that I pack because my brother-in-law passed away, gave this to me basically on his deathbed. And I told him I'd take it home and put it up, and he said, give it back to me. If you're not going to use it, you don't need it. So I put it in my pocket, and that's been many years ago. I still pack it everywhere I go. It's a 4-blade Kiss and Crane, made in Solingen, Germany. Has stag handles on it. It's a really neat little knife. I wouldn't take $10,000 for it. Another type of knife that a lot of folks pack, they prefer a smaller knife, and this company come out with these little knives along with KSWX also come out with some that were this size. This is a little buck. It's a little small. This is actually a 3-blade knife. A lot of folks like those type of knives because they were small. You could put them in your pocket. It didn't weigh your pants down. Didn't have such a big item in your pocket. Another old knife that everybody carried back in the day, everybody carried an old Henry or some sort of a Schrade knife, Uncle Henry, or some sort. This is one of those old stag-handled Uncle Henrys. Those things are hard to get a hold of nowadays too. But, a lot of people carried them. A lot of people back in the day used to carry these too, the Swiss Army knives. I've seen a lot of old guys when I was a kid that would pack one of these all the time because they basically had everything you need. They had a screwdriver and a knife and a file. Why, I guess maybe they could pull the cork out of their corn squeezing jugs. Had a corkscrew in it where you could pull stuff out. It had a leather awl. Those things were used a lot back in the day, because a lot of people dealt with horses and stuff. And then utility knives have come a long way, guys. I know everybody can remember the old silver Stanley utility knife that you could just push the button and it push out. Well, utility knives have went way past that now. This is actually basically that same knife. This one's made by DeWalt. It has storage in here for you to put blades in, but this one, the way it works is it opens up like a pocket knife, and then you have a utility knife that you can just push up and get your blade out of. And this one also has a splitter right here, so that if you're cutting linoleum, it's got a hook that you can just hook in it. But they've went so far now with utility knives. A lot of companies are making really good ones, but now, like I say, this one, I like this one because, and it's like I say, it's got storage inside of it. You can see that where storage is in the handle for the blades, and they're just handy little knives, but they've went leaps and bounds beyond what they used to be. Of course, now the biggest change in knives, in my opinion, in the mid to late 90s, it's what I call the AR age. Okay, that's when everybody started wanting an AR-15. That was the thing. You got to get a black rifle. Everybody's got to own a black rifle. Well, if you got a black rifle, then you need a knife that's kind of tactical too, because everybody was taking their AR-15 and they were stacking it full of lights and lasers and bells and whistles and whatever else they wanted to put on it. So they had to have knives that were tactical. So all of a sudden we went away from bone handle and we went away from multi-blade, and we wanted something that everybody could see we was carrying it, so it was sticking on our pocket or hanging on our belt and it wasn't in a case. So it was knives like this, and almost all of them's got this little thumb bar right here, so that you don't have to use two hands to open it. You can just use one hand. I guess that's meant for quick access to the blade, maybe, I don't know, but you can just pop them right open. And some of them you get really good at doing it. Some guys have worked their knives enough to where the open and close mechanism is pretty loose, and you can zip them right open. And then of course that one is not been used much. It's not been carried very much at all. But now this one, this Smith & Wesson knife here, this is one of the very, very popular tactical knives. Everybody wanted one, but it's not a high quality knife. They're still not made by a company that's putting out like super metal for knives, but a lot of people carried them and still do. A lot of younger, say the 16 to 35-year-old crowd, that's the thing that everybody likes, and that's cool. I like them myself. I'm an old fart, and I still like them myself. I have several of them, but that's just the way that the knives have changed. You know, back when I was a kid, this was the thing that everybody wanted. Everybody wanted a bone handle knife with 3 or 4 blades in it that you could take to the courthouse and whittle with it on Saturday when your dad would take you to town to get a haircut. And that was the cool thing. And I learned a lot of stuff sitting on a courthouse bench, keeping my mouth shut and my ears open and listening to them old folk. If we still did that today, it would make a big difference in this world, I believe. But other knives that you see a lot of people nowadays have got is stuff like this. I mean, this is ridiculous. It's huge, it's ornate, got a big dragon on it. It's cool to look at. I mean, these things are awesome. I've got them all over the place in my house. My wife and I love them. We collect all kinds of, they call them hunting knives. While you hunting, you must be hunting a dragon. But I've got all kinds of them. I've got some that are 2 or 3 inches long, and I've got some that are bigger than this. You know, I like them. But their usefulness is, what are you gonna do with it? You know, I mean, you're not gonna carry it. It's kind of one of the things I wish I had here. I've got 2 or 3 of them and I couldn't find, is a butterfly knife. In the late 70s, early 80s, that was the tactical knife of that period. That was the thing that everybody wanted, was a butterfly knife. I mean, you go to school, man, 12-year-old kids be flipping that knife around all the time. That's what everybody wanted. And you could go to a flea market or any kind of a place where there was a sale going on Saturdays and Sundays, and there would be 2 or 3 people there selling butterfly knives for $2-3 a piece, made in Pakistan, that you couldn't cut a piece of sheet paper with it if all you had to do was stab it, and it wouldn't get you. You couldn't fight your way out of a paper sack with one of them. But they was just awesome, man. Just everybody walk around and flip me up. The big thing was how fast could you open it, then close it back and lock it. You know, that was the big thing. And you kids in high school, I can remember us kids, we would try to compete with each other to see who could open and close one. I had one that had a black blade in it and gold handles at one time, and it was about 5 inches long, and man, I got so good with that thing, I could roll and open and close that thing, and it would not have helped you a bit if you needed a bad spot, I guarantee you that. Other knives that were much more important on the building of this nation and other nations. The kind of knives I'm talking about are military knives, bayonets. This one in particular that I've got here was issued with a Martini Henry 5.77-450, and more than likely saw combat in Africa, and they were used extensively for the military in Britain for about 2 decades. These knives were made in London, England by a company called Wilkinson Sword Company. And again, this one was made in 1888 to come with a real neat leather and brass holster that the knife, I guess you call for a knife as a sheath, not a holster. And they would use these in combat. This knife itself has seen combat. But the interesting thing about these particular knives on the Martini Henry, and we've tried this, for some reason, when you put these knives on the end of the barrel of a Martini Henry, it changes the harmonics of the barrel, and it will increase the accuracy significantly at longer ranges. Here's another one. This is a knife that, show that to you. This is a knife, I think, and somebody may call me on this. I'll put it up close to the camera so you can get a real good look on it, because I've been asking this question for a long time. I think it's a K98 bayonet from World War II or World War I. But it comes, this has got a steel sheath that it goes in, and the sheath has got a hook on it to hook it onto your, I guess, to their battle web gear that they had in the day, to their belt, so that they could just take it off and snap this ring over the barrel. But if you notice, you don't have that big of a hilt on this knife or that big of a handle on this knife. So these knives, they weren't really greatly intended to pull off and pull out and use as that's the only weapon I got. You could, but they weren't super designed for that. They didn't intend for you to do that. They intended you to put this on your end of your rifle and use it as a stabbing and slashing weapon, so you keep a distance from whoever you were stabbing and slashing. But they would still do the job. I mean, you could take life with that just with your hand, I'm sure, without a problem. But it wasn't particularly designed for that. But I want you guys to take a real good look at that. And like I said, somebody might know better than I do where this knife may have originated from. Like I said, I've had a few different people tell me it was a German knife, and I've had a couple people tell me that it wasn't a German knife, that it was probably an Italian knife. But I don't know. I'm no knife expert. I found this knife about 25 years ago in a pawn shop in Tennessee. So he let me have it for $5. I've turned down over 100 for it. I don't know what it's worth. I don't know even if it's worth that, but I don't want to sell it because it's something that I really, really like, and I think it's real cool. It has someone's initials that says PS carved in the handle. It'd be interesting to be able to know when that was done. See it right there, maybe. I don't know if you can. But that would be pretty interesting to know when, or know who put that in there. But if somebody has any idea about how old that is, let me know. I'd like to know. Now here's something cool right here. This little knife right here was made by Case XX just past the turn of the century. Okay, like in 1904, 1905. It's a they call them gentleman's knives, or we call them fingernail knives. And they would actually pack these on a chain on the end of their watch bob, so if they needed to clean or trim their fingernails or open a piece of mail, they had this little teeny tiny knife, little bitty thin guy, that they at their disposal. And I mean, it's a little teeny tiny guy. It's just so thin. Look how thin that is. And the back spring still works good in it. Snap right back closed. And there says USA Case on that side. Pretty interesting. It says USA right there. Case on this side. But one piece I want to spend just a few minutes on, and I think you guys will like this. I was talking about how people refurbish stuff or reuse things and make knives out of them. Well, I got a knife right here that was made in Nebraska by a gentleman that makes these knives out of pickup truck springs. And this is a cool little knife. It has an elk horn handle. And if you look where you put the brass pins through it, it's a cross on both sides. And they super polished the blade on this thing. It's really nice. My brother-in-law bought this for my youngest daughter. And there's even a little leather case goes with it. And I don't know what the guy's name was, but he puts his initials on the back of the case, KC. So KC, if you're watching, we've got your knife on the interweb, showing it to everybody. But here is the item that I wanted to show you. My brother made this. Every piece of this item is refurbished from something else. And when I tell you the things it was made from, you're going to like it. But he decided he was going to make a war axe. And I would say he accomplished that quite well. Now I'll flip it over and you can see the other side. And then we'll talk about it. Now, this war axe, the handle, if you notice how square the handle is actually refurbished from an old post hole digger handle, old hickory post hole digger handle. He drilled some holes through it and cleaned it up, and that's what he used for his handle. Now the blade, this thing is sharp. I'll be very careful when I handle it because it's very sharp and still got some old scale on it, so you don't know if you might get some kind of wacky infection or something from it. But the blade on this thing is made from an old John Deere cultivating plow that was horse drawn, that was made in 1902, and never done anything as far as changing the shape of the blade. That's the way the cultivating blades were. You could take them, you had a bar on there you could loosen out, pull them out, turn them over if they got wore, and he made it like that, sharpened both sides. Oh man, that thing's sharp. I about cut myself right then. Yeah, that is a neat deal. But to look at that, to have it in your hands, and to look at it, you would think, man, that was made way back. If it wasn't for this colored string, you know, if he would have used like a leather wrapping on it or something, but he didn't have any leather at the time when he made it. And he brought it to me and told me to keep it for him. Maybe one of these days he'd come back and get it, but I wanted everybody to see it. That's something that is refurbished, that was turned into a weapon. That scared me right there. Somebody was after me with that. That's a bad news piece of equipment. But my whole thing is that how people take stuff like this and stuff like this and refurbish it and make it into something that's still used today, and as a matter of fact, it looks better than the stuff you go in the store and get. And this thing here feels wonderful. If you are a right-handed person, which I'm not, but if you're a right-handed person, this fits in a right hand so well because of the curve of that antler, and that you can hang on to it and get a real good grip, and it's still got some of the butt of the horn on it, still got some of the knurling on it. To me, that's pretty neat stuff. When you see stuff like that, and you can see the progression, if you look at knives today, and you can see the progression of how the entire DNA of knives have changed from something that was user-friendly, that was going to be put to use every single day, to something now that it's most of the time the biggest job it's going to get is going to be to clean a fingernail. But some people still use knives for the intent that they were used for. They're a tool to help with their survival. Y'all, I appreciate you watching this video. I hope it didn't bore you too much. Try not to take too much of your day. And just to show you a brief history progression of the way knives used to be and some of the different kind of things that's going on with knives now. Y'all have a good day. It's the Fat Man. I'm gone. Hey guys, if you liked the video, hit subscribe. Don't forget to click that bell so you get notifications the next time we put out a video. Appreciate you. It's the Fat Man. I'm gone.